Good evening. Welcome to the FSU Weather Show on this beautiful Monday. At least it was for a couple hours today. I'm student meteorologist Coral Arroyo.
I'm student meteorologist Nikki Perrini, and we saw the clouds out today, folks. Tons and tons of clouds.
And humidity. I had to do my hair 3 times today.
I feel you completely. But on the upside, not only was it the World Meteorological Day, it was also National Puppy Day.
I know. That's a reason to smile. The clouds may have gotten away with sunshine, but golden retrievers can put a smile on your face no matter what. There was plenty of puppy pictures outside today.
I still have to post my puppy pictures. I haven't gotten to that yet.
Yes, you have 3 beautiful puppies, don't you?
3 beautiful puppies. One that actually deals with some of the things we're about to tell you. Cold weather, how it can affect your puppy, actually aggravates the arthritis, which my dog, Nigel, tends to experience quite often.
Yeah, Nigel, poor Nigel, but he's definitely a summer dog.
Summer puppy, he'll be swimming. So for those warm, hot weather puppies, there's actually some things you should be aware about too, right?
Yes, and we'll get into that a little later. But, we were talking about the humidity, and It did rain quite substantially over the weekend, and that moisture just kind of stuck around. I know the ladies must have had a hard time today, a lot of ponytails outside. I don't know if you guys noticed, but yeah, the humidity is murder on the hair, so.
Definitely murder on the hair, that's for sure. But we're going to go ahead and send things off in just a couple of seconds over to our first meteorologist tonight, Mr. Matthew Reagan. We're very excited about.
All right, Matt, why don't you tell us what's going on?
All right, guys, it's good to be back on the show after a couple weeks off, but I wish I had a better forecast for you today. But let's take a look at what's going on in the almanac right now, because the high and low temperature weren't very far off from each other for today. But one thing I wanted to point out on this graphic is look at that record low that we saw in 1986 of 25 degrees. It really felt like winter that day, and we might even see a peak of winter moving on in towards the weekend. But let's see what's going on across our area. Unfortunately, those clouds are going to be sticking around throughout the duration of the week, and then the rain is going to come back on Thursday in a bit of a transition period. And that's right, the cool down is coming back. We're talking about the end of March, getting into April, and the cool weather is starting to come back into our area. Radar was clear throughout the most of the day, with all that rain starting to push down on over to our south and east. We saw clear conditions, but for tonight, we're talking about lows in the near 55 degrees. Rain chances will be increasing overnight, though, but let's send it back on over to you guys at the desk for some more stories.
Thank you, Matt. You mentioned the cold, and I don't think Nigel's going to be very happy to hear that.
I don't think so either. He's definitely not the cold type of puppy. So,
No.
But after that, we'll have the warm weather. But for now, some cold puppy facts, I guess.
Yeah, winter's still not over, so you still have to deal with the cold. And, different dogs are built for different temperatures. And for cold, a lot of dogs, they're kind of accumulated to it. Dogs have a higher body temperature than people, but you still have to be careful. Just like people, Nikki and I love the heat, but some of our friends really love the cold. Dogs, too, they have a preference, and it can sometimes depend on the size, the coat, the body fat and activity level, and their overall health.
Exactly. If you think about some of the huskies out there who have that double coat type, style, then obviously it's a lot easier for them to deal with the cold compared to some of the other breeds that don't have these double fur coats. It's a little bit, cold out there for them.
And, if you are taking your dog on a walk and the sidewalk is cold or icy, make sure you wipe down their paws. Their paws are very important to health. But we're going to send it off to our next person with the local. So why don't you go on and take it out with the local. You can see temperatures right now in the mid-70s, so not cold for your dogs at all. Everything's going to be fine and dandy. And, I think even for people, it's going to be actually very nice. And, on local radar, you're not seeing much. A couple pop-up showers in the south, and, of course, across Perry. They were a little warmer. Some of that was the sea breeze induced, and we actually saw that towards the end of last week. The sea breeze was kicking up because it was so warm, and they dealt with a little bit of that today along with that front. And here you can see the front that passed us today that brought us all that rain last night. That's kind of moving on through, and then you see this big orange spot, and that is an indicator of dry air. So that's going to be coming into our area and kind of lingering, but it's not going to have too much an effect because we're about to have a southerly flow, which will bring in moisture and clouds. So although we have that dry spot, the clouds and the humidity aren't going to go away, and I'll talk about that a little more specifically as we continue. So keep your mind and just remember that, and boom, here's that low that we saw today and brought us rain this morning, and that's kind of brushing on down south. And of course, you see the clouds still lingering because we have right here this warm front. And the way winds work is that they come from the south and kind of go in the direction of where that front is pointing. And because wind is from the south, it's coming up from the warm, moist Gulf, which is why we're still going to be seeing cloud cover even though there's a dry socket of air coming in. So that is kind of overlapping and overtaking that, and you can kind of expect the cloud cover to linger as we head on to the middle of the week. Also, you're going to be seeing an increase of rain chances because we are going to be a little warm on the mild side. Some sea breeze induced, not quite as bad as we saw last week, but that cloud cover and moisture are going to stick around and kind of fuel some spotty rain chances at least up until Wednesday, until when our next front kind of goes through. So expect mild temperatures, plenty of cloud cover, and ladies, I'm sorry, but you're going to have the straightening iron at the ready at all times this week. That humidity is just not going to go away, and that poofiness is just going to stick around, so be prepared for that. And so we're going to continue on and show you what's happening tonight. 55 degrees, a little cooler because we did have a little brief cold front come through last night. Rain chances in the 30%, of course. And, you know, rain will most likely happen after 8, but it'll be very spotty. So if you are after that, make sure you have an umbrella or raincoat nearby because wet and with temperatures in the 55, it's going to be a little chilly for you. So be prepared for that. Tomorrow, temperatures back up into the mid-70s. Of course, Monticello and Perry might actually hit 80. We'll see. But expect mostly cloudy conditions, and that's going to linger on. So I'm afraid we're not going to see much of sunshine this week. You can see that here because all that moisture and humidity are going to stick around and bring temperatures, keep them on the mild side in the 70s. So be prepared for that, and make sure you have that raincoat and rain jacket on the ready for Wednesday into Thursday because rain is just going to be persistent, and we're going to send it off to Nikki with the southeast.
Hey.
Is it going to be cloudy for everyone else too, or is it just us?
Well, it seems like much of the state of Florida is actually dealing with these cloudy conditions. You could see apparently Orlando is having a bright sunny day, but that's actually an error on our part. He has not seen the sunshine. He's actually dealing with a stationary front. So the cloud is really covering the entire state of Florida all the way down to Key West. The folks who always see the sunshine, not so much. So this week is definitely going to be a more cloudy week. We'll see those cloudy conditions persisting for really up into the weekend. And even in the weekend, we'll have a little bit of a break, but still have those partly cloudy conditions across much of the area. In terms of the 24-hour temperature change, you can kind of see how much of the map's a little bit confused. You have a little bit of a bullseye going down here in Miami. Not too drastic of a temperature change. So we did have that front pass through last night. Cold front kind of transitioning into a stationary front. So it did not bring those cooler conditions, which most people would expect for, you know, where we are right now with the season. We're sitting in the middle of April, or not in the middle of April, we're in the middle of March. Sitting in the middle of March, and you would think we have some cooler conditions out there. We're actually above average right now. Well, that stationary front with the upcoming front that'll be pushing on through later on this week will bring us back down to the average temperature. So we won't be so above average anymore. That stationary front that I was talking about, you can really see on the map right here, really just bringing tons of rain, some much needed moisture to the picture, and that's actually stretching all the way up along the eastern seaboard coast too. So that's kind of great. They're getting the moisture, they're seeing the rain, which people have been seeing much of the rain for quite some time now, about a week and a half. So kind of long for a springtime period. But regardless, tonight we're going to drop things down a slight bit more. So in terms of how warm we've been these last couple of nights with our lows, dropping it down even cooler, 57 for Tallahassee, 64 also in Orlando, 71 in Miami, and down in the Key West. So we're seeing 70s for the lows down in parts of Florida, down to the south, mid-60s for Tampa, Orlando area, and then as you scoot back on up, 50s into the upper 40s in Tupelo. So we're seeing much of pretty average, above average conditions for our lows. Tomorrow's highs are saying the same exact thing. You see that cloud cover is going to persist. Might have a shot of sunshine tomorrow down in Miami, Key West area, but much of the southeast is dealing with these cloudy conditions across much of the area. That'll go ahead and move out though as the remainder of the weekend does push on in. But what we're going to talk about now is what exactly these puppies think about this warm weather. And I'm excited to have the warm weather come back as too. So, Coral, what do you think about the warm weather?
I'm excited, and I can think of one particular dog who'll be swimming all summer who's very excited about too. We mentioned him all throughout the show, Nigel. You know, he's
the star of the show tonight.
I know he is, but you know, he's an elderly pup, and he's a little big.
He's a little chunky, but
and,
we're working on it. We're working pretty hard.
Yeah, and you know, his arthritis really acts up. So swimming is his activity. It really keeps him healthy, and it's the one thing he can really do that's low impact, and it's good for him. So
it's true.
And he can only swim when it's warm. So
he can only swim when it's warm. He's a little bit of a daredevil sometimes, and it'll get kind of chilly towards, you know, the winter. Midwinter, he'll have an occasional swim, and we have to dry him off right away. But we live in Florida, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yes,
so.
But other dogs, unlike Nigel, because Nigel is a Labrador. You probably should have mentioned that. He's not a little puppy. He's a Labrador. But some dogs, like as we mentioned earlier, Huskies and Akitas, cannot do heat very well. And you know what? Who else? Bulldogs and pugs. because the shorter snout doesn't let them pant, and panting is how dogs release that excess heat.
Of course. It makes sense. I mean, if you have a small little nose, it might be kind of hard to get those things going sometimes. But we're going to go ahead and take it back to the humans and send things right on out to Tyler, who's going to give us more of what's going on with the weather. Tyler?
Yes, across the entire country, it is pretty warm, especially south of the Mason-Dixon line. 79 degrees in San Antonio. It is in the 70s also in Tallahassee, 66 in Atlanta. A little bit colder up to the north, which is expected for mid-March. 32 degrees in Boston, same in Minneapolis with those clouds and sun. You can expect temperatures to warm up there as we go later on. Highs today only got to freezing in Boston. Again, in Minneapolis, they're like twins with the high temperatures. 80 degrees in San Antonio, so pretty warm there. It only got into the middle 70s with the cloud cover in Tallahassee, which, while is around average, it's not as warm as it was the last couple of days. 24-hour temperature change shows a colder than average across much of the region. 4 degrees below average in Miami, below 24 hours ago. 13 degrees colder in New Orleans, and pretty cold across much of the Florida Peninsula. Further to the north, Memphis, Tennessee, and Dallas, Texas, those areas are getting a lot more warm. And it's actually a very variable pattern over much of the nation as far as temperature changes go. The radar shows rain mainly over the Detroit and the Great Lakes region, and in Ohio and the Ohio River Valley, and a bunch of rain up in Billings, Montana, Seattle, Portland, Washington, up in the northwest. And actually zooming in into the northwest, you can see the rain on the western face sides of the Olympics in western Washington. That's a rainforest there, so that's why they're going to get a deluge. And also in Idaho. Down here, it's pretty quiet. If I move out, you can actually see that there is a lot of rain that went through yesterday, and now it's down south in the areas like Miami, West Palm Beach, and much of South Florida. But across here, it is actually quite quiet after we saw rain yesterday. Airport delays and the reporting stations, there really isn't much delays because in much of major cities there isn't a lot of rain or treacherous travel. Tonight, warm, 57 degrees in Tallahassee, teens in the northeast, and for tomorrow, middle 80s are likely across much of the region, and 40s up to the north. But now we're going to send it back over to Matt with a look at our local weather.
All righty, thank you so much, Tyler. We're going to bring it back home a little bit here with our weather headlines. I touched on this a little bit before, early on in the overview, but those cloudy conditions are going to be persisting in our area, unfortunately, for the next few days. But like I said, that transition period is going to start Thursday into Friday when we see just a little taste of what we saw this past winter with a little bit of cooler conditions. But let's jump right on into the boards because it's looking rather comfortable outside right now, and in some spots it feels a little bit cool. 72 here in Tallahassee. Right now the cool spot is 64 Valdosta and Thomasville. You're mirroring each other. And then closer to the coast, you're seeing a little bit higher temperatures as well. But our water vapor imagery tends to tell the story about what's going to be happening in the future and where the cloud cover is going. So let's look right now. That cloud cover pushed on through our area, and overnight last night we did see those really heavy rains. So if you're coming back from anywhere last night, Sunday night, you may have gotten a little bit drenched. But that sense is starting to push out of the area, and the low pressure that we talked about earlier on is scooting on off into the Atlantic waters. So the calm conditions aren't going to be lasting very long, though, because we have yet another system starting to set up in the plains, which will start to increase our rain chances once again. But right now, that low, that's going to be getting on out of here. We're not going to have to worry about that anymore. But up here, you can start to see way up here near Oklahoma in portions of the plains, we're seeing another low pressure setting on up, getting ready to feed us in some cool air. That's right, cool air is coming back. We've been warm in the 80s, but now we may see highs in the mid to lower 70s. Beautiful weekend possibly on tap in our area. But for now, let's worry about this week. Cloud cover is going to be sticking around as we see the approach of that storm system. The temperatures are going to be staying mild with the southerly wind flow, and unfortunately, the rain chances will also be on the rise as well. But let's look at the beach, because if you are heading out on the beach on a cloudy day, the UV index really isn't looking too high, but just have the sunscreen ready just in case. Winds are a little bit gusty out there, so if you are heading out on the water for boating or whatnot, be wary of those rip currents because they can crop up anywhere. But let's take a look at what's going to be happening tonight. Mentioned before, 55 degrees here in Tallahassee, 50s across the board, mid to upper 50s. So a little bit cooler than we have seen over the past few days. Tomorrow we're going to be rebounding once again into the mid to upper 70s, maybe seeing some peaks of 80s down here in Perry. You're seeing 79 degrees as your forecast high tomorrow. But let's look at that 7-day forecast once again. I'll walk you through it. Tuesday, we're going to be seeing some cloudy conditions, not too much rain. Wednesday and then Thursday is going to be the increased day as we see that approach of the next cold front and storm system. And then Friday, we have the rain chance will start to settle down towards the end of the day. And look at the rest of the week. Beautiful conditions, highs in the mid-60s. That's incredible, especially for going into April now. And we're seeing highs in the mid-60s and lows on into the lower 40s on Sunday.
That seems to be a great respite because we've seen a bunch of average temperatures much of this month. But actually today is a very celebratory day. It's National Puppy Day across the country.
Yeah, National Puppy Day. Coral and Nikki touched on that a lot before. Well, who wouldn't get tired of talking about puppies? We can talk about puppies all day, and we're going to continue to do it just a little bit here.
Yes, and actually in the Northeast, it's actually one of the coldest winters, as we have been talking about at length for the past couple of months. Boston only reached a high temperature of 32 degrees today. That's about 15 degrees below average up there, and some of that's going to be coming down here later this week.
Yeah, we could be seeing a taste of those cooler conditions. We saw a lot of snowy weather in portions of the Northeast as well over the last few days.
And actually, we're going to send it over to Blake with its first time doing the weather.
Actually, I'm going to take it out with the around Florida real quick here. That's okay. We got weather, all kinds of weather. I'll be talking about weather for the next 3 minutes because we got great temperatures all across the state. Look at Miami, 82 degrees down there in Miami. That is beach weather down there, folks. So if you are down there, head on out to the beach. Even up here in Tallahassee, the waters are starting to get a little bit warm off the coast, so you can head on out to the beach. Like I said, the clouds are going to be sticking around, so if you're trying to tan, it may not be the best week to do that here. But let's take a look at the 24-hour temperature change because, folks, you felt it out there today. If you had to grab a jacket, you saw that temperature dive. Look at all the blue indicates the lower temperatures from what we saw 24 hours ago at this time. Even West Palm Beach is the colder spot with 11-degree change, and that's all due to that cloud cover that has been sitting along with that low pressure system and the rain associated as well. Look at all these clouds and the rainy conditions we saw last night, our little dose of storms from this low and this unstable weather. But let's take a look at a little bit zoomed in more on the state of Florida because those storms and really heavy and some lightning went through the Tampa area, even through Orlando. Since then, it's been starting to wane as it reaches parts of Miami. So a couple spotty showers in portions of South Florida. The cloud cover, though, that's what's keeping those temperatures on the lower side. So we're not seeing the increase in temperatures just yet. But once the sun starts to peek itself out, then we'll start to see just a little bit more. But tonight, let's look what's going on across the rest of the state. We touched on the Big Bend area here, but Pensacola, you're 56, just a degree below Tallahassee. Jacksonville's the cooler spot. And then as we move on down the state, 71 degrees in Miami as the low, 74 in Key West. That's low temperature. So we may not even see that this weekend as our high. So just to put that into perspective for you, 74 is the low temperature down in South Florida, but rebounding nicely tomorrow. But look in South Florida, that's a little warm for me. I don't know about you, but the 87-degree mark is just a bit too warm. All that deep red moisture. We may even see some 90s out of this tomorrow with that abundant sunshine. But here in Tallahassee, those clouds are keeping us on the cooler side, and thus, keeping those jackets out may be a beneficial thing moving on into tomorrow night. Will we need those jackets? Well, I'll take it out just once again with 58 degrees. Then as we move on down the peninsula, just a little bit more. 71 in Miami, 69 in West Palm Beach. Rain's going to be sticking around. We could see those rain chances start to increase once again as we push into our Wednesday and our Thursday. But this board will be changing colors and changing numbers because with the approach of that cold front, we will be seeing those temperatures start to dive quite quickly. But right now, we're going to be talking a little bit more about weather because who wouldn't love some weather? Coral, what do you got to tell us?
I got a lot of news for you. Let me first pop up the current national map because, you know, the colors may not indicate it per se, but you can see there's a lot of shower activity, at least in the southeast, and the cloudiness. You have the cold going on in the northwest, and you have this warm heat just driving the southwest. So a lot of stuff to talk about. And let me pull up the radar so you can see we've got a lot to talk about, actually. So let's start with the west. Here we have a low pressure system kind of coming on in from the Pacific. And of course, that's bringing some snow action and of course some what we like to call cyclogenesis. And that means a low pressure system is developing, and that we typically see this time of year. We're going from winter to spring, and with such great temperature changes, we see a lot of changes in the atmosphere. So spring is prime time for some swings in temperatures, and that's why we're going to be seeing a lot of activity pretty soon. So you can see this low pressure system here starting to develop, and then we have another wave right out here going to develop, and that's going to, of course, hit the Rockies, and then once it gets past the Rockies, it's going to redevelop again in the plains, and that's just going to continue driving off weather to the east. Now, if we take a picture on the other side, you can see we had that low pressure system off in the south. There it is now on the coast, bringing up that cold front right now. So there's that line from there, and then you can see that low pressure in the north, and then you see this wave before now moving into that area. So you're going to see a lot of this kind of activity picking up in the next couple of weeks because it's prime change for the atmosphere. Spring, we love to see flowers pop up, but you know, April showers, spring, May flowers, and we're getting into April, so be prepared for that. This is kind of a preview of what's going to happen. So we'll continue on and kind of zoom in here. We're seeing snow right now in the Michigan area, moving off into the Ohio River Valley, and then that's going to go on up through the northeast because, you know, why not just throw some more snow on there? I'm pretty sure they're sick and tired of it. They can't hardly wait for spring. And I know I have family in Virginia. She's sick of the snow. So I'm sorry to say they're going to be expecting some more snow, but, you know, spring's almost here. They can hold out. They survived the snowiest winter. That's a privilege for them. And you can see more snow off in the greater Nova Scotia area off of Maine. That's just going to keep developing and kind of keep bringing snow, and eventually to move out in the next day or so. So we'll click on through and show you the 24-hour temperature change. As I told you earlier, lots of colors everywhere. Much warmer than normal here in the Arkladelk and, of course, Tennessee and Mississippi, and then a little cooler just to the north where you have that front coming through that's moving off into this area, and, of course, front a little colder due to that front developing right here in Idaho. So lots of activity, lots of changes. It's spring, which means time for change. And there you go. There's that wind chill. We do have a little bit of a concern here because it is getting into those lower 20s, but they'll be fine. I think that's probably high for them. Here in Florida, that's cold for us. But today's high temperatures, you can see across the area, 60s and 70s in the southeast, 80 down in Texas, and 80s in the southwest, 50s in the northwest, and of course, 30s in the northeast. So we'll click on through tomorrow. You can see weather activity and everything. Here we have clouds dominating in the southeast, and of course, sunshine, a little bit of parts of Boston, but we're going to send it back to the desk. What can you guys tell us about how this weather is going to change Florida?
Well, the weather isn't looking like the 30s at all. We're quite warmer than that right now.
In the 50s and 60s tonight.
Yeah, that's quite a beneficial temperature. But one thing we wanted to touch on is it's Worldwide Meteorological Day.
What a celebration. It's a big holiday for meteorologists everywhere, rejoicing, talking about the weather. So thank your local weatherman if you haven't done so already.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to talk about weather all the time, but this just gives me a good day and a good excuse to talk about weather with people who don't like hearing about it all the time.
I know. So I know all of you guys better like the weather because you actually tuned into us. But let's actually send it back. I was so eager McBeaver last time, but let's send it back over to Blake. It's his first time at the wall with Local 3.
Thank you very much, Matt and Tyler. Happy Worldwide Meteorological Day to you guys. Let's take a look at your almanac for today. You saw a high of 73 degrees with a low of 66, which is relatively around normal except for that low. Look at those records though for today. Those were ridiculously high and low. 1986 saw a low temperature of 25 degrees at the Tallahassee Regional Airport, which is, I can imagine feeling that right now. That would just be dreadful. Let's take a look at your temperatures around the area. Tallahassee, you're sitting at 73. Monticello, the cold spot, you're at 66. A little warmer down towards the coast, 66 in Carabel, 76 in Carabel, 75 in Apalachicola. And taking a look at your local radar, You can see we had no rain in our area for today, except for south and southeast of Perry. They saw a few thunderstorms, but that's out of our viewing area. Taking a look at our satellite and radar, you can see Florida just did not have a sunny day. So I'm sorry to all you folks in Orlando, Tampa, Miami, and in Tallahassee. But they saw some heavy rains, some of those yellows and reds, which is torrential downpours. So they saw a lot of rain. And your water vapor, you can see all of those clouds that we saw today, and that just pushed on down through Florida. And we are getting a bit of this dry air, which is indicated by the orange and yellow in our area, but that will not last, unfortunately. We will get some more clouds as we move on into our future cast. You can see that. We have a low sitting on top of us right now. It's associated with that stationary cold front, which is sitting right on the panhandle, but that will go out of our area. And you can see some of these clouds that I just mentioned earlier, which will be covering our area and the Gulf. And we see a warm front, which is going to be pulling up some moisture from the warm Gulf of Mexico, creating more of those clouds into your Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday morning. Mild temperatures, which is consistent with what we're dealing with, maybe a little lower than today, but still clouds. And not that much rain on Wednesday, but rain conditions will be moving in on Thursday. Tonight's forecast. Tonight your low is going to be 55, Monticello 57, mostly cloudy at 30% chance of rain. Tomorrow's forecast, 76 in Tallahassee, 79 in Monticello, and Perry is 79. They might reach 80, but in Tallahassee you're most likely not going to. And your 7-day forecast. Clouds, clouds, clouds. That's all I see. It's just Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 40% chance of rain and 20% chance of rain. And Saturday and Sunday, you will actually see some of those cold temperatures moving in. Let's send on back to Michael and Matt. Tyler and Matt.
Congratulations to Blake, and don't worry about being bad, bringing bad news. We are only the messengers, so hopefully people won't kill us or shoot us.
Oh, well, I hope we don't have any of that today.
Yeah.
We're not talking about freezing conditions, but luckily just a little bit of clouds, but the sun will be making a great return, hopefully, fingers crossed, this weekend, once all of the rain and the nastiness pushes out.
Yes, at least, even though it will be cloudy the next couple of days, by the time we get to the weekend, the clouds will abate, unlike what we saw 2 days ago.
Yeah,
this last weekend wasn't really the nicest weekend in the world.
No, well, the last few 7 days we've had quite a roller coaster, and this 7 days we're going to be seeing that once again, because Tuesday through Friday is when the clouds and the rain chances, it's going to be kind of a mess Wednesday and Thursday. That's not a meteorological term, that's just our term.
Yes, and actually, if you want to see more, you can like us on facebook.com/FSU Weather.
And you can follow us on Twitter anytime. We just tweeted, and live stream. You can watch us anytime. Interact with us and send us your pictures.
For FSU Weather, I'm student meteorologist Tyler Van Harten.
And I'm student meteorologist Matthew Reagan. Thank you for joining us on a great Monday show. We hope you have a great week, and we're just really happy to be back here on a Monday.
Exactly, 20% to the weekend, but who's counting?